January 14th, 1943. 21,000 feet over Saint-Brieuc, France. The winter sun is a thin, pale smear above the Atlantic coast, its weak light scattering across a ceiling of broken clouds. The air up here is razor cold, cold enough that frost spiders across canopy glass the moment a pilot exhales. And it is into this brittle sky that Hauptmann Egon Mayer, commander of Jagdschwader II Richthofen, pushes his Focke-Wulf FW-190A4 into a shallow banking turn. Below him, to the west, a lone silhouette glides across the haze. Too slender to be a bomber, too clean to be a heavy fighter. No escort, no formation, just a single RAF intruder glinting dull gray against the morning light. Mayer tightens his gloved grip on the stick. What idiot flies alone over occupied France? He dips his nose. At his wingtips, two of his Staffel pilots follow, engines humming through the cold air like angry hornets. The 190s accelerate, their BMW radial engines drinking oxygen and spitting out raw horsepower. The ground controllers at Brest had been clear. Unknown aircraft at high speed, course east by southeast, possible reconnaissance. Reconnaissance? Over their coastline? That alone is enough for Mayer to push the throttle forward, the prop biting the frigid air with renewed fury. As he descends through 20,000 feet, the shape becomes clearer. Broad shoulder-like wings, a long gray fuselage, twin engines. But the thing looks wrong. Too smooth, too round, too light. More like something a carpenter would build than an aircraft factory. One of his pilots mutters over the radio, voice crackling through static. "Herr Hauptmann, it looks like it's made of wood." Mayer says nothing, but he sees it too. The aircraft ahead, the British intruder, is a de Havilland Mosquito, though the Germans haven't yet learned to respect its name. This one, Mosquito DZ414, flies oddly low for a reconnaissance run. Its pilot, squadron leader Charles Portal, keeps the aircraft on the edge of the cloud deck like a man walking a tightrope he built himself. Portal senses them before he sees them. The Mosquito's cockpit is warm compared to the freezing outside world, the instrument panel vibrating beneath his fingertips. He glances right, a faint glitter, sunlight, bouncing off something metallic. Fighters. He doesn't know how many yet, but enough. He pushes the throttles forward until the Merlin engines behind him howl, the aircraft trembling as if eager to break free of the atmosphere entirely. The Germans closed the distance quickly. Mayer drops to 18,000 feet, eyes narrowing behind his Reeve gun sight. The wooden aircraft is beginning to accelerate, but it still looks fragile, vulnerable. A wooden toy. Mayer angles into a diving attack. His two wingmen fan out to block escape routes, their 190s slicing downward like metallic predators. Portal reacts instantly. He kicks the rudder, rolls the Mosquito onto its side, and drags it toward the thicker cloud below. The altimeter unwinds, the Merlins scream, the frame shudders. But the twin-engine timber airframe holds. The Germans pursue. Mayer is only seconds away from firing range now. He steadies his breathing. His thumb inches toward the firing stud. He lines up the Mosquito's tail, preparing to shred it with a burst from his 20mm cannons. But Portal does something that stops Mayer's breath cold. The Mosquito rolls inverted, not gently, not cautiously, but with absolute, reckless precision. Portal shoves the throttles to the stops, hits 100% boost, and dives. The airspeed indicator blurs past 350 miles per hour, then 380 miles per hour, then 408 miles per hour. The wooden aircraft begins pulling away from Focke-Wulfs. Mayer stares in disbelief. "Impossible," he mutters. The Mosquito vanishes into the cloud deck like a ghost dissolving into mist. The LFUF pilots are left with nothing but empty sky.
For several seconds, there is nothing but white, dense, rolling cloud swallowing everything from horizon to horizon. Mayer levels off at 15,000 feet. his breath fogging the inside of his mask as he scans the void. His wingmen sweep left and right, carving arcs through the mist, throttles wide open, guns armed. But the Mosquito is gone. Only the roar of their own FW-190 engines answers them. Mayer clenches his jaw. Aircraft do not simply outrun him, not at this altitude, not at this speed, and certainly not some strange British machine built from plywood and glue. He banks hard, bursts through the top of the cloud layer and emerges into open sky, sun glare burning across his canopy. Nothing. No silhouette, no shadow, no intruder. The Mosquito has dissolved into the morning like a wisp of smoke. But below, within the cloud layer, Squadron Leader Charles Portal fights the shaking controls of DZ414 as the aircraft tears downward at breakneck speed. The altimeter needle spins wildly. The Mosquito buffets hard on the edge of compressibility, its wooden frame groaning under the pressure. Portal steals a glance at the airspeed indicator. 408 miles per hour. Right at the edge of what this aircraft should survive. His navigator, Flight Lieutenant Martin Ames, braces a hand against the cockpit roof and shouts through the intercom, voice cracking through turbulence. "Ease off, Charles! She's going to come apart!" Portal doesn't answer. His eyes stay locked on the clouds ahead, feeling the engine's vibrations travel up his arms. Every instinct screams at him to throttle back, but the image of those three dark FW-190s diving toward him overrides everything else. He holds the dive until the last possible second. Then, he pulls. The Mosquito explodes out of the cloud base just 2,000 feet above the French countryside, leveling off so sharply that G-forces flatten Portal against his harness. The wooden wings flex violently, but hold firm. DZ414 streaks across the patchwork fields like a silver bullet skimming the earth. Ames exhales shakily. "You're mad, Charles. Completely mad." Portal allows himself a thin, fleeting grin. The Merlins stabilize, the tremors fade. The Mosquito's speed bleeds down to a survivable 360 miles per hour, still faster than anything the Germans can manage at this altitude. Above the clouds, Mayer dives again, attempting to reacquire the intruder. He knows the British bomber must have dropped below the cloud deck, but every second he spends searching makes the truth harder to swallow. He keys his radio. "Form on me. We return to base." There's hesitation on the other end, not defiance, confusion. "Sir, did it outrun us?" Mayer says nothing. Instead, he banks east toward Sandbriok Airfield, the morning light glinting off his canopy, his brows drawn together in a mixture of irritation and disbelief. As the 190s turn for home, the reality settles like frost across Mayer's thoughts. The British have built a machine unlike anything the Luftwaffe has ever faced. And if a lone Mosquito can humiliate three of the Reich's finest fighters, what happens when entire squadrons of them appear over Germany? Meanwhile, Portal keeps DZ414 low, weaving through valleys, hugging terrain, staying beneath radar arcs. His pulse finally begins to slow. He doesn't speak, he doesn't celebrate, he only listens to the rhythmic heartbeat of the twin Merlins and thinks, they'll never believe it. No one outruns a Focke-Wulf except a wooden ghost.
No, they're heading toward Berlin. Word travels up the chain, confusion spreads. The Luftwaffe is unprepared. No fighters are in position, no flak towers are alerted. Because no one in Germany expects bombers to arrive at over 360 miles per hour in broad daylight. Least of all, wooden ones. Portal watches the city's suburbs appear on the horizon, a gray sprawl under a clouded winter sky. "Targets ahead," Ames calls out. Portal nods and pushes DZ414 into a gentle climb. Berlin glitters beneath them like a wounded beast. Government buildings, railway yards, broadcasting centers. Portal selects the radio station, the Reich's pride. He arms the bombs. The Mosquito formation fans out behind him, each aircraft a streak of pale light crossing into the heart of the enemy's capital. For a moment, no anti-aircraft weapons fire, no fighters scramble. It is as though Berlin itself cannot believe what is happening. Then Portal presses the release switch. The bombs drop cleanly, vanishing beneath the aircraft like falling stars. Moments later, they hit. Explosions blossom across the city center, echoing through the streets, rattling windows, silencing the broadcast in mid-sentence. Ames turns back to Portal, awe spreading across his face. We did it, in daylight, in a wooden plane. Portal pushes the throttles forward. We're not done yet. The Merlins roar. The Mosquitoes turn west. Berlin burns behind them. As the Mosquito formation streaks west, racing low over the suburbs, the delayed shock in Berlin finally detonates into chaos. Air raid sirens wail, late, far too late. Anti-aircraft crews rush to their guns, men scrambling across frozen steel platforms, shoving shells into breaches with trembling hands. But the Mosquitoes are already gone, carving a silver path back toward the horizon. Portal keeps DZ414 just 200 feet off the ground, weaving between factories and rail yards, every vibration from the engines thrumming up through his bones. The terrain blurs beneath them, fields, roads, villages, flashing past in seconds. Behind him, the other 11 aircraft trail like shadows, slipping between columns of rising smoke. Ames checks the map again. They'll scramble everything they've got. Portal nods, but they can't catch us. Not today. At Tempelhof Airfield, the first fighters launch just as the Mosquitoes cross the city's outskirts. Engines howl, tires scream off the runway. Focke-Wulf FW-190s and BF-109Gs claw for altitude. Their pilots know exactly what they're hunting. Reports flood in over the radio. Fast aircraft, twin engine, extremely low altitude heading northwest. Speed estimated above 360. They bombed Berlin in daylight. One squadron commander swears under his breath. They're mad, completely mad. But orders are orders. The Luftwaffe surges skyward in pursuit. Portal sees the smoke trails first. Thin wisps of gray stitching across the sky to the southeast. Fighters, Ames warns. Distance. Too close for comfort. Portal pushes the throttles to full emergency power. The engines snarl, propellers biting harshly into the icy air. The Mosquito leaps forward, wings trembling under the added strain. Behind him, the formation adjusts instinctively. 12 wooden phantoms become 12 arrows, slicing westward at impossible speed. The German fighters dive. From 10,000 feet up, the FW-190s spot the Mosquitoes hugging the earth. They drop into a steep angle, sunlight flashing off their wings as their cannons arm. One pilot whispers into his mask, "How are they so fast?" The dive steepens, airspeed indicators spike, and suddenly, the Germans realize the trap. At this altitude, this close to the ground, the Mosquitoes have the advantage. The British aircraft skim rivers and treetops, sheer speed flattening the landscape beneath them. The 190s, designed to hunt at altitude, struggle to follow without risking impact. A German pilot tries anyway, yanking his stick to stay on the Mosquito's tail. The ground fills his canopy. The controls stiffen. The fighter trembles violently. "Pull out, Hans! Pull out now!" Too late. His wingtip clips a tree. The Focke-Wulf cartwheels into a fireball that scatters itself across the frozen earth. Portal sees the explosion in his rear mirror. His jaw tightens, but he does not slow. "Keep low," he orders. "Speed is everything." The Mosquitoes race onward. Farther south, another group of German fighters attempts a side intercept. They choose altitude over recklessness and attempt to cut off the British formation by climbing ahead of its path. It almost works. A Bf-109G4 dives at DZ414, cannons blazing. Tracers streak past Portal's left wingtip. Ames shouts, "He's locked on!" Portal doesn't hesitate. He jinks right, then snaps into a brutal left turn that makes the Mosquito howl. The wooden wings flex dangerously, almost too dangerously, but they hold. The Bf-109 overshoots, ripping past them at lethal speed. Its pilot tries to correct, banking hard to re-engage, but the Mosquito is already pulling away again, engines roaring like twin beasts unleashed. Another German pilot curses into his mask. They accelerate like devils. Impossible. The Mosquito formation crosses back over occupied territory. Flak guns open fire, but the rounds burst far behind them, too slow, too imprecise to catch aircraft moving this fast, this low, this unpredictably. Portal and his squadron bob and weave through the deadly sky, each maneuver instinctive, each course correction made in fractions of a second. Fields give way to coastline. The North Sea appears, gray, windswept, heaving with whitecaps.
Ames exhales. Almost home. Portal doesn't relax. Not yet. Because he knows the Luftwaffe will chase them to the water's edge. And they do. The last formation of German fighters appears behind them, FW-190s clawing desperately forward, the tips of their propellers shimmering with strain. Portal glances back. They're still trying. Trying, but not catching, Ames says. The Mosquitoes level out over the sea. Throttles push to the absolute limit. Spray bursts upward as they skim just above the waves. The FW-190s follow, but quickly fall behind. Their airframes, optimized for climb and turn, simply cannot keep pace at sea level. Slowly, pitifully, the Germans fade into the distance. Portal watches them shrink in his mirror until they are nothing but specks swallowed by the horizon. He finally exhales. We made it. DZ414 and its wooden sisters race across the open water, Berlin shrinking behind them like a bad dream. The world has just learned what a wooden airplane can do. But for the Reich, the nightmare is only beginning. By the time the British coastline emerges through the sea haze, a pale, jagged line rising from the water, Portal's shoulders finally begin to loosen. His hands ache from gripping the control column. His vision pulses with the afterimage of the day's terror, smoke rising from Berlin, tracers splitting the sky, Focke-Wulfs diving like falcons only to vanish behind the Mosquito's raw, impossible speed. DZ414 skims over the cliffs near Cromer, the winter wind slamming against its wooden skin. Below, waves crash into the chalk walls, spraying white frost into the air. Behind our intruders, the rest of the formation follows in perfect, exhausted silence. 12 aircraft departed. 12 return. Portal touches the radio switch, voice steady but weighted. Marham Control, this is intruder leader, requesting vector home. Static, then a relieved voice bursts through the headset. Welcome back, Mosquito boys. You had the whole station on edge. Ames leans back against his seat, head thudding against the rest. Berlin in daylight, he murmurs. They're going to talk about this for years. Portal smirks faintly. Let them. They land at RAF Marham just after noon. Ground crews sprint toward them as those 12 wooden aircraft, smelling of heat, fuel, and triumph, roll to a stop. Mechanics climb ladders, touching the airframes as if unsure they're real. One corporal stares at the bullet holes stitched across the left wing of Portal's aircraft. A wooden plane did this? He mutters, awe softening his voice. Portal climbs down, boots hitting the tarmac. Leroy Mallory is already there, coat flapping violently in the wind. He looks at Portal with the face of a commander trying and failing to hide pride. You've embarrassed the entire Luftwaffe, he says, simply. Portal wipes grease from his hands. Happy to be of service, sir. But Leroy Mallory isn't smiling. He's stunned. Reports say they scrambled everything they had. Fighters, flak, they couldn't lay a finger on you. Portal shrugs lightly. Speed is armor. And wood, Ames adds from behind him, hoisting his navigation bag, is apparently the best armor of all.
Within days, Berlin radio broadcasts are crackling with bitter fury. The propaganda ministry labels the attack an outrage, a humiliation, a violation of the Reich's air defenses. But pilots, Luftwaffe pilots who know the sky, who understand performance in physics, talk differently in their mess halls. Rumors spread like wildfire across the airfields of northern France. A British bomber outran Egon Mayer. It hit 400 miles an hour. It was made of plywood. Some refuse to believe it. Others swear they saw the blur themselves. A few shake their heads in something like respect. And in the corridors of the Luftwaffe High Command, the mood darkens. If Britain can build bombers faster than Germany's best fighters, if speed can surpass armor and firepower, if a wooden machine can strike the heart of the Reich in daylight, what else is coming? Back at Marham, Portal returns to DZ414 late that night. The hangar is quiet, dimly lit by lanterns reflecting off the Mosquito's varnished skin. He runs a hand along the warm, smooth plywood. Birch and balsa, materials that seem almost childish in their simplicity. Yet today, they carved a hole through history. He rests his palm against the fuselage. "You did well, girl," he whispers. Ames steps up beside him. "Do you ever think that this aircraft is going to change the war?" he says slowly. Portal considers. The speed, the altitude flexibility, the ability to outrun anything the Germans put in the air. Not change, he says at last. Redefine. Because the Mosquito did not just survive. It didn't just outrun Mayer. It didn't just bomb Berlin. It humiliated an air force built on steel and arrogance by proving that brains, simplicity, and raw speed could defeat complexity, fear, and might. And as the wooden silhouette of DZ414 rests in the stillness of the hangar, its engines cooling, its skin glowing faintly in the lamplight, one truth settles over the night like drifting snow. The age of the wooden wonder has begun.